Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Dorn. Graham, I had some ACC trivia for you yesterday, and you promised me some Big Ten trivia today. So hit me with your best shot. Fire away.
I think everybody knows it's been a while since the Big Ten has won the national championship. So, how many conferences have won the national championship since the Big Ten?
Oh, I'm sure the trick here is the American won one, at least one, with Connecticut. So I'm going to say. Pac-12 hasn't won. Pac-12 didn't win one since 97. I'm going to say five. Big 12, ACC, SEC, Big East, and the AAC.
That's incorrect. Indiana won the national championship last night. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, you,
Okay.
you nailed it. And you're lot. I knew you had it immediately because the second you started with Americans the trick, I was like, yeah, he got it. Okay. Yeah. That
It's
was
like,
the
oh,
tricky one. Because Louisville was in the Big East still in 2013 when they won, but the
hmm.
next year, that's when UConn won back-to-back titles for really the same conference because technically the Big East turned into the American. The new
Yeah.
Big East, as we know it, is actually a new conference.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me how many Big Ten teams have made the Final Four since, because I know they've had like seven runner-ups and they've had like 19 teams make the Final Four, but they do not ever actually win it all, aside from the Indiana football Hoosiers last night. And now tonight, Indiana could lose to Michigan, and they're basically drawing dead to make the NCAA tournament. But on that note, we will share the old spreadsheet, and we want to start up at the top. I feel like we've mostly been ignoring the one seeds because there's not a whole lot to say. Like we've barely said anything about Duke in the 2 weeks we've been doing this. We've hardly had anything to say about Arizona, but we got to talk about Nebraska because I didn't realize that we are in the minority here. I saw Lunardi had his bracket today. He has Lunardi. He has Nebraska as a 2 seed. Our buddies Tim and Dave Oman, Tim Kruger and Dave Oman from the mock committee, they had their Bracketville podcast this morning or last night, and they both have Nebraska at 6 overall, behind Michigan and Purdue. And you know, sound minds can come to different conclusions, but we both see Nebraska as a 1 seed, and I'm shocked that people don't agree with that because it's not like they're 18 and 0 and they haven't beaten anybody. I mean, they're 18 and 0 and you can make the argument that their best wins are better than now Nebraska, or excuse me, Michigan's wins have been more impressive, and I, their best wins they're good. I don't get it why people are behind. How anybody can decide that Nebraska is the third best team in this league, and obviously we're not going to argue because we both have them up there. But what are your thoughts on the Nebraska dilemma?
You know, it's interesting. I think 5 years ago, if we had Nebraska up there, nobody would bat an eye at all because everybody would say, well, yeah, look, I mean, they're undefeated. Look at all the great teams they've beaten. And now I think with analytics being so ingrained in the average fan, they look at Nebraska and they're like, well, look at their net, look at their qualitative average. And it's like, yeah, but like, really look at who they've beaten. Like, give them some
Yeah.
credit for actually winning games. And I feel like the pendulum swung too far in the other way. And I think that actually even happened a little bit to me last year with Memphis. I thought, you know what? I watched this team. I don't think they're very good at all. I think they're like a bubble team. Definitely they should be in the tournament. Yes, they should get a pretty good seed, but when you have as many good teams up there as I see, I don't think I'd be giving Memphis a 5 seed. And then the committee gave them a 5 seed. So I think maybe the committee is starting to say, okay, maybe we've gone a little far with treating efficiency as almost too large of a part of the process. Let's kind of go back to just looking at who did you play, where did you play, and how did you do, and emphasizing the win aspect of that a little bit more than how badly you beat a team.
Yeah, and the predictive metrics, they don't much care for Nebraska because a lot of their wins have been very close. We talked about that before. Won by 3 at Illinois, won by 2 at home against Michigan State, won by 3 at Ohio State, won by 6 at Indiana. I mean, they had a couple of very convincing wins over Creighton and Wisconsin, and that's when they made that leap from oh, this is a fun little story. Nebraska's 8-0 to, oh, they might actually be legit. But a lot of people still haven't made the leap to, oh, Nebraska is probably a one seed. That surprised me. I feel like, I mean, I couldn't even tell you where are they 6 or 7 in the AP poll. And I know, anytime you post anything about bracketology, somebody comes out of the woodworks asking about the AP poll. That doesn't really matter, but it's weird that we're almost not we, but other people are almost putting some stock in the AP poll and in Ken Palm rankings in particular, more so than the actual resume metrics. And I know there has been some talk in years past of, I mean, not necessarily from the committee, but from other bracketologists of the resume metrics determine whether you get in, and the predictive metrics help determine your seed. Is that what's going on here? Because I don't know how else people can come up with Nebraska not being top 4 overall right now.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think everything is a part of the process. And when I look at Nebraska and I see that resume average, it's an indication of a very good resume, but I go beyond that. I don't just look at the metric, I look at the actual
Sure.
profile. And looking at that, I want to just compare really quick Nebraska, Michigan, and Purdue, because I think those are
Yeah.
the three teams that seem like one seed candidates. So just look at it at Illinois versus at Alabama. I think at Illinois is a more impressive win. Definitely both are more impressive than beating Gonzaga on a neutral court. You go to the second best win for those teams. I would say Texas Tech is a very good win, probably the number one win there, just because it wasn't a true home win. But then next to that, I would say Michigan State is better than beating Auburn. I would definitely go
Yep.
there. And then on to that third level, I think at Indiana is more difficult than beating Villanova at home or at USC. So I think you could
Yep.
argue Nebraska has at least two of the top three wins there when we're looking at those in categories. And you could maybe even make the argument Michigan State at home is up there with Texas Tech in a neutral court. So, really, when you just break down the wins themselves, I think Nebraska's got an edge there. And then the ultimate edge is not losing a game. They didn't lose
Yep.
at home to Wisconsin. They didn't get beat by 23 at home by Iowa State. Give some credit to Nebraska for not just winning, but taking care of business against very good teams.
Yeah. I think it must be that, people see that Michigan is still number one in 4 of the 7 metrics if you include net, and they're like, oh, we can't not have Michigan as a one seed. And then you see Purdue so strongly right there with Michigan. It's almost like they're moving in tandem, and either you have both of them above Nebraska or both of them behind Nebraska. I don't know. They're both top 6 overall, and it'll flush itself out in the end. But I'm surprised there are people that have Nebraska lower than those two right now. Um, let's talk about the past week. And I texted you earlier about this. There were 13 games, I think it was, where the top 9 played a game against the bottom 9, and those 13 games all went in favor of the top 9. So whatever the gap was between 9 and 10, it is even wider now. Certainly between right there. Let's make a line on the spreadsheet right there between Ohio State and Indiana. I mean, Indiana's not even close anymore outside of their net metric, which I don't know why the predictives are still in love with the Hoosiers, but um, what was I going to say here? I lost my spot on my notepad. There we go. So we got 5 contenders, 4 bubble teams, and 9 just kind of nothings at this point. Of those 4 bubble teams, obviously Wisconsin has by far the best win at Michigan, but there's really not much else there. Do you think that the Big Ten? I'd probably set the over under at 8 right now. I wouldn't even put a .5 on it because I think it's that tough. If you say 8.5, I'm definitely going under, but 8 I think is probably a number.
Yeah, I think 8.5 is probably where I'd go, but either way, we're pretty close. What keeps it's interesting. I saw, forget who it was. Dave Oman was talking about somebody being the bubble team they thought was just going to be a pain all year.
He
Uh,
said Baylor, and then I
Baylor.
responded. I was like, "Oh no, it's Ohio State. They've been right on the cut line the whole
And
time."
you said that it was my exact thought. I just keep thinking Ohio State just keeps hanging around. They don't do anything that interesting one way or the other. but it just feels like it's a matter of time till they land one really big win and one really bad loss, and then we're going to be kind of feeling the same way about it. It's like such a meh profile overall, except now we got this one interesting thing in this direction, this one interesting thing in the other. I just think Ohio State, they almost seem destined for either first four in or either the first four or the first four out of the tournament. Uh, they just they just have that feel to me. Also, speaking of bubble teams, UCLA feels very interesting to me. I don't want to steal your thunder because I know you always ask this about big games this week, but I look at that Purdue game and I think they have to have it. I know that sounds weird to say this early in the year, but you look at who else they're going to play. They're going to be going on the road for some opportunities they're very unlikely to capitalize in. It almost feels like even if they were to later this year land a Nebraska home win, I don't know that that's enough without a second big win. And I just feel like this is a very do or die moment for UCLA. I think they need to beat Purdue. Obviously, there's a lot of time, but realistically, I think they need this one.
Yeah, I think for all three of those teams there that are on the board but not actually that close, these next 36 hours are make or break. If Indiana doesn't beat Michigan, I think it becomes imperative that they beat Purdue a week from today at home. You lose both games of those games, they're done. You already mentioned the UCLA Purdue game, and then Washington at Nebraska. If they don't win that one, I don't know if there's any coming back for the Huskies. And at that point, it becomes like an absolute max of nine teams from the Big Ten. I think Minnesota was on the board a week ago, but they took a pair of losses, and they're pretty well out of the conversation now too. Circle back up to Illinois here, who got some rough news today. Kylan Boswell is going to be out for presumably a month with a broken hand. And we have talked before about how Illinois' schedule was set up in such a way that they could have just like, almost through no fault of their own, just kind of slipped down to a seven seed just by how onerous their schedule was. So now without Boswell, they're going to be playing at Purdue this weekend, at Nebraska next weekend, at Michigan State the weekend after that. And if he's not back 4 weeks from today, they're going to go on their road trip to USC and UCLA without him. They still got Keaton Vogler. They've got, big men galore. But how are we just talked yesterday about Louisville and Michael Brown Jr. What's going to happen to Illinois if they were to lose all five of those road games? And then he comes back and, oh, we just got a home win over Michigan. This is who we really are now. Do you throw that away? I mean, do you think Kylan Boswell is like every year we talk about it? Like, if you try and count for every single injury result, you're going to have an asterisk on every single game on the schedule. But there are like two or three big ones: Darren Peterson, Michael Brown Jr. I don't think Kylan Boswell rises to that level, and I don't think the committee's going to give them some slack if they lose some games they were probably going to lose even if he was playing.
I mean, you just nailed it with that part too, right? Like I was thinking about the quality of the player also, but the schedule itself, like it's one thing to look at. You could literally just watch how Darren Peterson played against Baylor and be like, yeah, that guy is not normal. That is not what I'm used to watching at the college basketball level. You watch Illinois in those games, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you're even going to notice a difference. Like, let's be real there. Like, I don't know that the committee would be like, oh yeah, they're clearly inferior. Like, they might have just been like, yeah, we probably think they would have lost that game anyways because that's a tough game on the schedule. I think it's definitely going to be a factor. Will it be a convincing factor? Maybe if we're talking about, is Illinois the difference between 19 overall or 21 overall. Maybe that's what we're talking about, but I don't think we're talking about the difference between, moving them up 2 seed lines versus down 2 seed lines. Definitely don't think we're in that territory.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a huge loss because of roster construction, right? Like they're going to have to just let Vogler cook and hope that Petrovic is able to step into that void. He's barely been playing at all over the past. I mean, he was a late arrival. He got cleared in like late October. He hasn't been playing much. He was supposed to be great. Maybe this is his chance to shine, but it's kind of that's the only option they have other than going with like five big men. So I think that'll be interesting to monitor and just see like what their how cohesive they are without Boswell. Because I mean, he is a good player, and I think he's more important to Illinois than he is, a National Player of the Year type of candidate. If independent of what roster he was on, but that's a big one to watch because obviously we both have Illinois right on that 3-4 seed cut line right now, and that's not in any way us trying to account for an injury of which we've seen no results yet. But
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes moving forward.
What it reminds me of is actually it was Kansas a couple years ago where they had both McCullough and Hunter
Yeah.
Dickinson injured entering the NCAA tournament. And ultimately, the committee seemed to take it into account a little bit, but not really much. Like we're talking maybe move them 1 or 2 spots on the overall seat list. I think Illinois is probably in a similar position.
Yeah. I think it's injuries are always mentioned to us as bracketologists, and we always just kind of whatever. Like, yeah, when Zion was out for 5 games, Duke took a couple of losses, but he came back and was awesome. They won the ACC tournament, and then they got a 1 seed. Outside of that, I feel like the committee just kind of ignores injuries. It's because they say that they're monitoring everything and they take it into account, but it doesn't bear out in how the bracket gets shaped out.
I mean, we've seen it a few times, and when we do, I think it's usually because they think that guy's clearly the best player on the team. I think we saw it with Tucker DeVries last year.
Yep.
I think we've seen it with Bonzi Colson before. And to your Zion comment, I think everybody looked at Duke and said, "Yeah, that guy's not normal." We saw what they did in the ACC tournament. They should be the #1 overall seed. Because I actually don't think Duke had the best resume that year. I think everybody just realized with Zion, they're the best team. Now, they didn't win the tournament, but they were the best team.
All right, last question before we wrap up, and you already hit on the upcoming schedule some, but I wanted to particularly single out Ohio State because they have a 3 games in the next 7 days situation here versus Minnesota, at Michigan, versus Penn State. Obviously, they're expected to beat Minnesota, they're expected to beat Penn State, and they're expected to lose to Michigan. Is that what will happen?
Yes. And I think it's going to keep them on the exact same plane they're on, right? Just right on that first four and first four out territory. I expect the Buckeyes to be in this position for a long, long time.
I think this is a golden opportunity for them to do exactly what you said. They'll get 1 great win and 1 terrible loss. So they'll go 2-1, and it'll change our opinion on them, but also they'll end up in the exact same spot by winning 2 out of 3. That'll wrap us up for today. A lot of Big Ten games today. Michigan, Indiana already mentioned, UCLA, Purdue, Ohio State, Minnesota, Michigan State at Oregon. That could be an intriguing one. Both of these West Coast games, Purdue at UCLA. But until next time, enjoy the Big Ten hoops tonight. The whole slate. Tuesdays are always awesome. But until next time, enjoy the hoops.